in this worship and going straight through into the message that we're going to be talking about today, that the work of the cross, the redemption, the price that was paid for us, it was paid. The work is finished. So many times we try to figure out how we can work things out or what we have to do in order for God to do something great in our life. And He says, I just want you to come sit at my feet. I want you to understand who I am, your Redeemer. And I want you to understand what I want to do for you, what I want to give you. If there's any kids that haven't gone over to Life Kids, you can go over there, because I forgot to say that. So before I move in to the meat of the message, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that at the end of the book of Ruth, it gives this genealogy. If it just says that, kind of gave you a glimpse of the end, like a little sneak peek of really what this whole message about Ruth is about. And that Naomi was redeemed, and Boaz redeemed her. Ruth was redeemed, and Boaz redeemed her. But at the very end, it says then, Ruth gave birth to a son, and they named him Obed. And Obed was the father of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of David. And so at the beginning of this story and is Ruth trusting God and holding on to Him and being a part of the genealogy of Christ. But one that I wanted to just begin with and say is that we're pioneers of something. But what are we going to be pioneers of? And I had mentioned before in the previous message about Orpah and that she didn't come with Naomi back to Bethlehem and that she just ran back. And in other books of history, it says that Orpah went back, and I won't say all of it because it's not rated G, but you can try to find it yourself. But that she went back and went crazy and did a bunch of stuff that is not good, and she gave birth to Goliath. And you see here this story of Ruth, and she had Obed. Obed was the father of Jesse. Jesse was the father of David, and Ruth was a pioneer. She opened a way for this line of David and Jesus, and Orpah turned away from God, and she pioneered something herself, but it wasn't good. So we're going to do one of two things, and both of them are going to be pioneering. Both of them are going to be opening a way, but are we opening a way for Jesus, or are we opening a way for the enemy? So Orpah turned away and went her own way, and her son was Goliath, who tried to defeat that line of Jesus, right? I don't know about you, but that just knocks me over. Are we going to grab hold of God and follow Him? Trust Him no matter what. Even if we can't see what lays ahead, if we don't have the understanding of how it's going to work out, but can we, like Ruth, and just cling? She clung to Naomi, and she said, your God's going to be my God. Where you go, I'm going to go. Where you die, I'm going to die, because I'm going to be right with you. So don't even try to get away from me. And I think that story should tell us how much we need to cling to God. to what he is speaking, to who he is. So we saw in chapter 1 that story of Naomi and Ruth coming back to Bethlehem, and Naomi was bitter. She's like, don't even call me Naomi. That means something happy. She's like, call me bitter. But we see Ruth, who, in an amazing way, who was somebody that was not a God-fearing person growing up, that she was from a place that was serving all kinds of gods, and that she comes to this place where she is staying with Ruth, and she's trusting God, and she brings herself to a place that God can use her. And in chapter 3, we come to a place where they realize that Boaz is a kinsman redeemer. Or actually right before, in like the last verses of chapter 2. But all of a sudden, it's this moment where Naomi said, he is part of our family. He is a relative. And he can redeem what has been lost. He can take in you and I. He can take you in, Ruth, and he can redeem us, even though we've lost everything. And in this, as I speak about the rest of this book of Ruth, I want you to have in your mind how this is a picture of us and a picture of Jesus. It's a type, it's, if you will. It's a picture of what Jesus did for us. There's 3 requirements for a kinsman redeemer. And so in the Bible, going back further in books, there are these ceremonies or things that happen that when a husband died and left a wife behind, that a relative would take them in and redeem them. They would take them in so that the family line, that husband's family line wouldn't be lost. So they would take them in, and they were a redeemer. And there's 3 requirements. One is that your family or a close relative, the closest actually, it goes in line of succession. So the first son is the kinsman redeemer, unless they push away their responsibility. Secondly, they have to be financially able to support or pay the price, because what you're doing is you are purchasing all of your brother or your relative's assets, their land. Really, it's land and all that they have. You're saying, I will take that in so that it doesn't get lost and be taken out of the family. I will redeem it. I will pay the price to take care of my brother's family. And thirdly, you have to have the desire, the want to, the will, the love to take in your brother's wife. And that is what happens in this story. You know what's interesting? I was kind of reading about this, and in this story of Ruth, it's a little different, but I think it relates to it. But there's a ceremony called if I can say it correctly, a shalitza. And it's a ceremony where if the brother doesn't want to take in and doesn't want to become the redeemer of his brother's family, that it says that the elders and the people will all stand around, and it says to take their shoe off and spit in their face. It's what it says. You want me to read it? But if he stands firm, this is Deuteronomy 25, verse 8. Then the elders of his city shall call him and speak to him. But if he stands firm and says, I do not want to take her, then his brother's wife shall come to him in the presence of the elders, remove his sandal from his foot, spit in his face, and say, so shall it be done to a man who will not build up his brother's house. So, that just gives you a picture of what is happening in this story of Ruth and what we're going to be talking about. So we go to Ruth in chapter 3 in verse 4, and you have Naomi who's talking to Ruth and saying, hey, he's a close relative. He can be a redeemer, this kinsman redeemer, so go to him. And it says in verse 4, then it shall be when he lies down that you shall notice the place where he lies, and you shall go in, uncover his feet, and lie down, and he will tell you what you should do. So when I read this, I'm like, wait, what? Like, go in there, just lay down beside him, like at his feet, and uncover his feet. Like what? Like, just smell him? Like, what's the point of that? But the story that I just told you, or that ceremony that I just told you, hopefully gives you a picture of what Naomi is thinking whenever she's saying, go to uncover his feet, because there was a significance in the sandals and a responsibility. And when Naomi tells her to uncover his feet, she's saying, listen, it'll be very subtle, but let's remind him of the responsibility of a relative to take care of his family. Let's hopefully remind him who he is and what he can do for us. So she goes in and she uncovers his feet and she lays there. And I guess his feet are getting cold, laying out there. His feet are getting cold, and it says, now it happened in verse 8, at midnight, the man was startled and turned himself, and there a woman was lying there. And he said, who are you? So she answered, I am Ruth, your maidservant. Take your maidservant under your wing, for you are a close relative. So now you have Ruth, and she's there, and what Naomi has asked her to do is kind of coming to fruition, and she is laying there. She doesn't cover his feet. He wakes up. He's startled. Who is it there? She said, I'm Ruth. I'm the one who's been here, just picking up after gleaning after your servants, just been here day and night, just trying to take care of myself and my mother-in-law. And I'm just here, and I wanted to let you know that you're a close relative, and would you take me under your wing? There's a couple of things in this verse that I'd like to see. And like I said, this is a picture of us and Christ, right? And one of the things that I was thinking about is her position when she comes in. And where is she? She's at his feet. She's at his feet. She doesn't come in and lay right up next to him like, hey, I'm right here with you. She doesn't lay above his head like, hey, I'm in charge. I'm whatever. She comes in and lays at his feet. She's prostrate. She is laying there at the feet of her Redeemer. What should we take from this? We should take that is how we come to the cross. We don't come with our head held high, with our legs strong, saying, I got myself here. We don't come saying that somehow I've done something to get to the place where I can stand at the cross. When I come to the cross, I'm going to be lying down. if I could get under the ground, I'd probably be under the ground because that's probably where I belong. There's nothing that has gotten me, that I have done, that has gotten me to the place where I can be at the feet of my Redeemer. And in verse 10, it says, Then he said, Blessed are you of the Lord, my daughter, for you have shown more kindness at the end than at the beginning. You have shown more kindness in the end than at the beginning. And that you did not go after young men, whether poor or rich. And what is he saying here? It's like, you're blessed that you have actually done everything the right way from the beginning to the end. So anyways, Boaz comes and he said, Ruth, you've done things right from the beginning to the end. And then what did he say? He says that you haven't been seeking just some guy, just some man to marry. Whether rich or poor, you haven't gone your own way. You haven't tried to do it your own way, Ruth. You're actually going about it the godly way of seeking redemption or a redeemer. You haven't tried to make your own path or your own plan. You haven't tried to do it however it could get done. Because it might have been, that you could find some guy. Maybe not a rich guy, but it might be easy to find a poor guy. I don't know. But he says, listen, you have done things the right way. You haven't tried to cut this path for yourself, but you've allowed God to lead you in it. You've allowed God to direct your path. So then he says, I will redeem you. But the problem is I'm not your closest relative. So the problem is there's somebody that's closer that can come and redeem you if he's willing. And so we get to chapter 4, and in verse 1, it's, I love whenever the way that some stuff is said, especially in the Bible. I love it. It says, Now Boaz went up to the gate and sat down there, and behold, the close relative of whom Boaz had spoken came by. So Boaz said, Come aside, friend. That's what it says in the Bible. Sit down here. So he came aside and sat down. I love it. He's like, when somebody says that to me, I know they've got something that's planned in their mind. Come aside, friend. I want to talk to you about something. I'd be like, no. No, not so much. So he says, listen. So he tells Ruth, you've done this the right way. You haven't tried to make the way yourself. You haven't tried to cut your own path, seek after some husband, no matter who it is. You have been following God. And he says, and I'm going to do the same. I can't do this without doing it the right way because Boaz was a righteous man. Boaz had wisdom. And he says, I am not going to shortcut what needs to be done so that I can get what I want or so that I can redeem you. And you know what I think about? I think about Jesus. I think about, when he was tempted. When he was tempted, he was standing up there and the devil was up there saying, listen, I will make you ruler over all this. I can give you all this. Just ask me. Just worship me. Just tell me I'm the one that has control. He said, I'll give it to you. And you know what Jesus, he's like, listen, bro. I just imagine that's what he told the devil. So listen, I know what needs to be done, and maybe it's going to be hard. It might be difficult. It might be painful. I'm going to have to go to the cross to do this work, but I'm not going to shortcut anything. I'm not going to cut my own path. I'm not going to take the easy way out. What I'm going to do is what my Father has called me to do. So in chapter 4, verse 4, it says, Boaz is talking to his relative, and he says, and I thought to inform you, saying, buy back the land of our brother. Buy it back in the presence of the inhabitants and the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, then redeem it. But if you will not redeem it, then tell me that I may know, for there is no one but you to redeem it, and I am next after you. And his relative said, okay, I'll redeem it. I love this. Don't you love it when God just like gives you the answer, if you will, it's like sneaking in oh, by the way. Oh, by the way. Then Boaz said, oh, by the way, on the day that you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you must also buy it from Ruth, the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to perpetuate the name of the dead through his inheritance. And the close relative said, wait a second. You didn't say that before. I can't redeem it. I'm going to ruin my own inheritance. I'll ruin my inheritance. Now, there's a few reasons why he's probably saying it will ruin his inheritance. If he already is married and has kids, that's one reason. If he's not, really a big reason is that she is from Moab. She's from this country that is sinners. She's a Gentile. They're Jews. They're God's elect. They're God's people. And the people in Moab worshipped all these gods. They were sinners. They were those far away from God. And if he took in this Ruth, who came from this place, who was a sinner, that it might tarnish his name and his inheritance. How could I take her in? And Boaz knew. I think he just knew. He knew. And that's why he saved that for later. He's like, oh, by the way, you have to take Ruth, who's from Moab, who came from a sinful place. And you're going to have to redeem a sinner. You're going to have to pay the price. Whew. He said, I can't redeem it. So we talked about the sandals, right? So in verse 8 it says, therefore the close relative said to Boaz, buy it for yourself. So he took off his sandal. Remember, it's that responsibility. He's saying, I'm giving up my responsibility. Now, why I say this is a little different than that other ceremony, it was because Ruth wasn't there and she wasn't there to like spit in his face and all this stuff. But in a similar way, he was saying, listen, I know what this represents. My sandal represents the responsibility that I have to take in Ruth, and I am giving up that responsibility. So it says, and Boaz said to the elders and all the people, you are witness this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's and all that was Chilion's and Mahlon's from the hand of Naomi. So he hands Boaz his sandal, saying, I'm giving my responsibility to you. And then now you have this moment where Boaz is able to redeem. And he's saying, listen, one and all, I want you to see that right now I am paying the price. Now, what do we say about a kinsman redeemer is that they had to be a close relative. They had to be somebody close. And I know of someone that's closer than a brother, right? I know that Jesus is close. I know that he is there with us. That he's not far away. And that he had to pay a price, right? Just like Boaz saying here, what he is giving us a picture of. He's saying, I am willing to pay the price for the redemption of Ruth, for the redemption of this sinner. I'm willing. I'll give whatever it takes to buy the land. It doesn't matter what the cost. I'll pay it for her redemption. And that's a picture of the work of the cross for us and saying, listen, I see Jesus and I say, he was there for me, for you, for all of us. And you know what he said? I will pay the price. No matter what the cost, I can go to the cross. I will take this pain. I will take this suffering. I will take their sin and their shame. I will be the redemption. It doesn't matter what the cost. And he paid the price for us. He said, I'll take that on myself. I will take the sandal. I'll take the responsibility of paying what needs to be paid so that we could be saved. In verse 10 it says, moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the widow of Mahlon, I have acquired as my wife to perpetuate the name of the dead, through his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off among the brethren, and from his position at the gate. You are witnesses this day. It says, listen, I have love. Not only am I willing to pay the price, not only am I a close relative and gone about this the right way and haven't, shortcutted anything. He said, I'm willing to pay the price, and I have this love for Ruth, and I am going to bring her in as my wife. Listen, Jesus said, I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to take you in. I'm going to pay the price. I'm going to take you into my family. Listen, you once were a sinner. You once were far away from God. And there was no way that actually we could make it to him by ourselves. But he came in close and he says, listen, I'll pay the price and I'll take you into my family because you know what? I don't want your name to be cut off. Your inheritance won't be cut off. Your line, your family won't be cut off. He says, I want to redeem you. I want to take you in and redeem you. In Ephesians 2:13 and 14, it says, but now you have been united with Christ. Once you were far away from God, but now you have been brought near to him through the blood of Christ. For Christ himself brought peace to us. He united Jews and Gentiles into one people, and his own body on the cross, he broke down the wall of hostility that separated us. Listen, I love this. It says he united Jews and Gentiles into one people. You know what? Way back when, and we talk about Ruth and Boaz, and there's a little picture of what Jesus was going to do. A little picture of the work of the cross. And where nobody else would, and not that there's anybody else but Jesus that could do that for us, but where nobody else would in Ruth's situation, Boaz says, listen, I will take in this woman. Her past doesn't matter. Where she came from doesn't matter. What she's done before, it doesn't matter. What matters is my love for her. What matters is that I want to bring her in and to redeem her. And to say that no longer she will be called a Gentile or a sinner. You know what she's called? She's somebody that is in the line of Jesus. She is actually a pioneer, one that has brought forth a line of Jew and Gentile together as one. So that way down the road, not only is Jesus going to be nailed to the cross for us so that we can be brought together, but he actually came from those that were brought together. When I see this story, what I want to do is I want to put me in that picture. Say, look, I could have turned away like Orpah and just messed everything up and actually been an enemy of God. Isn't that a great picture? Like if I turn away, what am I going to bring about that is fighting against God? But when I turn toward him and cling to him and say, you're my Redeemer, you're everything that I need, you're the only one that can save me. And I come prostrate, if I come just lay at his feet and say, just cover me. If we just come before him and just say, you're my Redeemer. You're the only way that I'm going to make it. You're the only way. Listen, he's the only way. No matter what anybody else says, he's the only way. It's not make your own way. It's not, there's multiple ways. It's he is the way. And he says, I want you to be a pioneer. And in this story of Ruth, I see that. She prepared a way. She didn't know what was happening or what was going to happen or how it was going to happen. But she said, I'm going to follow God. And you know what? God gave her Obed. Obed was the father of Jesse. Jesse was the father of David. She was a pioneer. God says, would you follow me and prepare a way for me? Prepare a way for me to be known in the world around you. Would you stand with me?